Oh, Mr. Spears is there.
I'll give you this one. I'm gonna get to that.
Okay. All right. All right, good evening, everyone. I usually start about 5 minutes in to give those folks that get here right on time a moment to come in, have a seat, and get settled. My name is Nicole Spicer. I am the proud principal of Bronzeville Classical School. Thank you. It's a pleasure to just have guests back in the building. So this feels like we're slowly but surely getting back to normal. So thank you all for coming, naturally socially distancing and wearing your mask. Tonight we're going to take you through our presentation, which should be about 20 minutes or so. As you can see, we do have a parent panel, representative of several grade levels up here, but we know that most of you guys are here primarily for kindergarten or first grade. And I believe we have families from both of those grade levels here, so you'll be able to ask some very poignant questions for those particular grade levels. Mr. Spears is going to drive the presentation for me, but I'll probably ask Ms. Cannon. Ms. Cannon, will you come in and drive the presentation so Mr. Spears comes back? Ms. Cannon? Hello, and this lovely young lady who is waving her hand in the back is our school counselor, so you'll definitely be able to ask her some SEO questions. Will you drive the presentation so Mr. Spears comes back? Thank you so much. In the interim, I can definitely introduce our parents. On my far right is Mr. Mitchell. He is one of our first grade and third grade parents. He's been at Bronzeville since we started. Very interesting story about Mr. Mitchell that I'll share for the parent today for the parent panel. Next, we have the lovely Ms. Brooks, one of our third grade parents. She has been here since our first year as well. No, second.
I'm just gonna hold this because it's
first. She came in first grade, but it was our second year as a school. Mrs. Carney is one of our kindergarten families, so she'll be able to tell you about the kindergarten experience. Mr. Mitchell also experienced virtual kindergarten as well, so he'll be able to share that experience just in case we have to be fluid because we know the times that we're living in as well. And then last but surely not least, up on the panel is Mrs. Barclay. She has a lovely third grader. Ms. Townsend, all the way in the back, holding down registration, is one of our fifth grade parents. She also was here since the start of our school. And our lovely assistant is our music teacher extraordinaire. He does lots of things around BCS, technology, streaming, music teacher, Golden Apple winner. So he's going to be taking us around this room. So Mr. Spears wears many, many hats around here. But we'll jump in so you can meet some other members of the team. I've already introduced myself. This afternoon, you may have spoken with Ms. Jones. She's our clerk, and she is really the heart of the school. Anything you need to know, Ms. Jones knows it. And then Mr. Lewis also is our office support. He will be helping you out through the enrollment and registration process when your child is offered a seat this spring. So our instructional model is based in what we believe about children and how they learn. We really believe in providing authentic learning experiences for our students that really help them to create or cultivate the creative thinking skills to be our 21st century global leaders. And that's what we try to replicate here on a daily basis. We do have 5 core values that we strongly believe in and that are our common language around here. Ask any BCS student, they'll be able to rattle these off to you and what they mean, because this really truly is our common language. Value, adaptable, integrity, team, and intentional. We definitely leaned into all 5 of those core values during remote learning and even the transition back, and our parents will be able to speak to that as well. Our students even earn Eagle Extra or Eagle Awards around the core values. Our teachers nominate students who exemplify these core values, but we relieve in student voice, so students kindergarten through 5th grade also nominate their peers for these awards. In addition to being grounded in a common foundation, a common language, and core values, we also believe that our students need to possess a certain set of skills to be successful in society. We want our students to be able to ask for help, work with others, disagree appropriately, accept feedback and consequences, and learn how to resist peer pressure starting as early as 5 years old in our kindergarten program. Because we know several adults that we work with who do not exemplify those social skills, and we don't want to work with those people. So we don't want our students to be those people. So these are intentional social skills that we weave into our SEL curriculum as well. You may be wondering, what is a classical school? In Chicago Public Schools, we start 1 year ahead, so our students learn advanced curriculum. So if your students in kindergarten, they'll begin with the first grade standards, so on and so forth. But really, I wanted to kind of zoom out and look holistically at what the definition of a classical school is. Beyond our rigorous acceleration, at least 1 year ahead, there really truly is a liberal arts education that is broken into 3 different stages. The primary grades, kindergarten through second, is what they call the grammar. It's really just setting the foundation and making sure that they have their strong fluency and foundation set. The second stage is the logic, and that is where they start to apply many of the standards and skills that they're learning at the primary level, but more on an application basis and starting to synthesize it into new learning settings. And last but not least is the rhetorical, and that really is asking our students to think outside the box and be very innovative. So all the foundation has been laid. They've applied it to situations created by their teachers. When they get to middle school, we really want them to be the drivers of their learning.
Oh, sorry.
In order to develop the tiers for the entering grade level. So they look at median family income in your particular area. They look at the percentage of single parent households, percentage of households where English is not the first language, percentage of homes occupied by the homeowner, like, are you renting or do you own, level of education, and then lastly, achievement scores of the attendance area schools. So there are 6 criteria that go into creating a tier. And so the kindergarten class is broken into 4 tiers, and they force rank the students by tier, and they go from top to bottom by a certain number of seats. The first 30% of seats are awarded to the top scoring students. The remaining 70% are split amongst the tiers equally. We accept 28 students in each class. We have 2 classes. So our kindergarten will be accepting up to 56 students. I feel like that was a lot. I went really fast, so I'll pause. Questions on that? Yes, ma'am.
So for the tiers, they start when they split up equally. Do they start exactly like tier 1 and tier 2?
All the tiers have like I think you have an equal chance. So, thank you, Mr. Spears. We're streaming this as well, so sorry about that. So they take whatever 70% of 56 is, divide that by 4, and then they just go straight down the list. So if you're in tier 4, the higher you score, the better, because you'll be separated by tiers. Now, I don't know if they do this first, second, third, or what, maybe first, because the first 30% of seats go to the highest ranking students, no matter what tier you're in, and then I'm sure they force rank them by tier and award the remaining seats. So what happens subsequently for additional rounds, because there are more rounds for selective enrollment, they will continue to do selections until all of my seats are filled. That typically is not until the 20th day of school. So if you don't get it in the first round, typically in April there's 1 round, maybe 1 or 2 in May, 1 in June, but they'll do 1 every 2 weeks about until all the seats are filled. The last day we offered a seat this school year was September 30th. So they'll go even until school gets started. I think we got maybe about 4 or 5 students after the school year. Yes, ma'am. There are 2 classes of 28. Yes, ma'am. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Is it 2 classes for every grade?
Yes. Yes.
Right. So, for the wait list, like you were saying, April, May, I know with selective enrollment, you can't see your acceptance across the board. It has to be per school. So if Brownsville Classical is your top and you don't make it in April and May, is what you're saying that it needs to remain your top until the end?
So that is a good question. I'll tell you what I know about the selection process. And you raised a really great point that I did not mention. Preference does matter. If Brownsville Classical is your #1 choice, make sure you make that your #1 choice, because they will go through your preference. And Mr. Mitchell can tell you a little bit more about that when we get to the parent panel. So if Brownsville is #1 and you don't get your #1 choice, well, let's just say your child's score is high enough to go to McDade, and they have a seat at McDade, they may offer you the seat at McDade. So unfortunately, families are in a situation of, I didn't get my #1 choice, I got my #2 choice, am I gonna accept it? If you do accept it, you are now pulled out of the eligibility pool, and if I continue to have a seat available, they will not consider your child because you already accepted the seat. That does happen as well.
Can I ask a follow-up to that?
Sure.
Would we find out where our child is sitting on the wait list to help us make that?
They will not. To the best of my knowledge, they don't. For me as the principal, I don't see the student scores. I don't see where you are on the list. They literally email me, principal, twice on how many seats you have. I say 56. They send me 56 names.
Thank you.
So I never see their score. Yes, ma'am.
How long do you get to respond to?
The first round is the longest round. The first round, you get 2 weeks. Every subsequent round after that, the time is shorter and shorter. I think the second and third round are usually about a week. When you get to the 4th and 5th round, it's usually like 3 days. And the last round, which is about round 6, it usually is like 24 hours. So it gets shorter and shorter. And I'm assuming that's because it's getting closer and closer to school so that we can prepare. But each subsequent round gets shorter for your response time. And typically there are 5 to 6 rounds for selective enrollment schools. Now, this is very, very different if you're applying to a magnet school like a language academy or something like that. They do have access to their wait list because it is a lottery for selective enrollment. This is only for selective enrollment elementary school. So I'm sure high school is a whole other.
And do they tell you, do they wait 2 weeks before they tell you about the other schools, or do they kind of tell you?
So each round is independent. So round 1 is round 1. When round 1 closes, then round 2 will go out. And I believe you'll only get a notification if you are selected for the subsequent rounds. So the first round, I think everyone gets a letter to say if you've got an offer or not. And then for subsequent rounds, if you receive an offer, you'll get a new correspondence.
So it's 1 school per round.
Yes, unless you apply for other programs outside of the selective enrollment program. Because it could be that you get a magnet seat because it's a lottery as well as a selective enrollment. last question, then we're gonna keep going. Go ahead.
When you say rounds, this is just a period of time to select yes or no?
Yes.
And then does your child need to do anything in between that? Is it like
So
just-
if you are selected, you need to complete your registration to hold your seat. Your seat is not actually claimed until you're enrolled and registration packet is received. But other than do the registration, there's nothing else you need to do. If you haven't received an offer, there's nothing else you need to do after testing. Our focus, one of the things that we wanted to build into the foundation of our educational program when we started 4 years ago was the idea of personal learning. As a former assistant principal at Skinner North, I noticed that great program. I love Katie Madison. We still talk to this day, but there is a focus on whole group instruction, and everybody kind of gets the same thing. I don't know if that's still the case because I haven't worked there 4 years. But coming into Bronzeville, that was one of the things that I really wanted to address and support, because for our students, it's not about getting them to grade level or having them to excel, because that's just naturally who our students are. But the challenge for me and my staff is to ensure that our students are growing academically. And one of the huge levers that we use for key strategies is personalized learning, because we can meet students where they are and take them where they need to go. The second part is really offering a quality education through our rigorous curriculum. We use Eureka Math, which is conceptual math. A lot of our families call it new math, but it's really not new math. It really is just conceptualized math. So your child may be able to add and subtract fluently, multiply and divide fluently, but most times students cannot tell me that 23 is 2 10s and 3 1s. In order for them to be successful in algebra, they have to have a strong foundation in math conceptually, and that's what we focus on. Typically, I get a lot of questions about acceleration in math, and then when we dive deeper and parents see that their child doesn't actually understand place value, then they understand why we don't accelerate. So just something to think about, but that's why we chose Eureka Math. We chose Amplify Science, which is from the campus of UC Berkeley. It is an inquiry-based science program. Our students investigate scientific concepts and topics through investigations, really providing that authentic, real-life application and process. Through literacy, we do balanced literacy, kindergarten to 3rd grade. Balanced literacy is really that opportunity for students to read, write, speak, and listen each day with authentic text. Back when we were in elementary school, you probably remember that Basil, you read a story, you answered the questions at the end, and that was it for the week. We are moving away from that in our literacy practice and making sure that we put authentic, full, start to finish text in front of our students. And then for our upper grades, 4th and 5th grade, we are using expeditionary learning, which really engages students with rigorous text and tasks. And lastly, we use the Skyline curriculum for social science, which is really a culturally relevant and responsive curriculum that we're excited to pilot this year. Yes. Sure. It is not similar to Montessori. I don't really know Montessori that well, but I can tell you how personalized learning looks here. When you watch the video for our school tour, you'll be able to see our setting. We have lots of flexible seating, so students get a lot of choice. They can choose where they work, how they work, as they move through the levels of autonomy, which our parents can probably talk about a little bit later. They can actually choose the order in which they do some of their work. We offer them choice boards. So remember I said we don't spend a lot of time with students in whole group instruction, teacher teaching, and students listening. We spent about 20 minutes giving direct instruction to all students, and then the rest of their instructional block, they get to choose the activities that they engage in. It could be center work where they're doing fluency practice, independent work from their whole group lesson, working with the teacher or working with another small group on different topics. And they have a choice board that they use to kind of guide their learning, but a lot of student choice is infused into that. And then the parents can tell you a little bit more about how that looks from class to class, grade level to grade level.
I know it's harder with math, but because it's personalized, you have a metric or expectation for the children that through the year because they're all on your different levels.
Well, the expectation is the grade level standards that we're teaching, so that's something that doesn't change throughout the school year. But what we do, we do 5-week assessments so that teachers can change small groups and their focus. So it's not like we take the scope and sequence provided by the curriculum and we just go start to finish. The teachers are really using data to decide what they're instructing on, for how long, and to what group of students. And so that's the personalized thing. The last focus for us is really parent participation. That really is the secret sauce of a successful school. You have to have engaged, involved, informed parents to support the school, your mission, and your vision. And I would say that is probably hands down one of the major factors of why our school is so successful. Our parent community, they're heavily involved, whether that is fundraising, making donations, giving their time, giving their talents, or even sharing resources within their network. Is a big part of who we are as BCS. Yes, ma'am.
Fundraising goals you guys have.
I'll let Mr. Mitchell talk about that during the parent section because our friends at Bronzeville Classical School really lead that. But as a school, we really don't push fundraising that much because we really want, we don't want our families to feel obligated. We are a public school, and that means that we have families of all different types. And typically, if you have a big fundraising goal, people feel compelled to give, or maybe even feel bad if they don't, they're not able to give. So previously, before COVID, we may have did one big fundraiser every year, and it was usually to fund a specific initiative, but we just don't have a hanging fundraising goal. But our friends of Bronzeville Classical, they do have a goal, and they support us financially outside of what the district provides. And so Mr. Mitchell will talk about that when we talk about the Friends of Bronzeville Classical School. But that was a great question. We do have student fees that I'll talk about in this presentation. We are serving grades kindergarten through 5th grade this year. Next year, our 5th graders will be moving up to 6th grade, and we'll be welcoming a new kindergarten class. But we will have 8th graders starting the 24-25 school year. This year is our first year to elect an LSC. We're super excited about that. In the interim, we did have a parent advisory, which was a formal body that our parents could give and receive feedback with the administration. And Mrs. Barclay is our chair of that, so she can talk a little bit more about that later this evening. We do have 4 priorities for our school improvement. One is the multi-tier systems of support, which really pairs great with our personalized learning goal, which is instruction number 3. So really providing the right supports for each student at their level, making sure that they achieve those individual goals. Secondarily, making sure that we have balanced assessment and grading. So in order for personalized learning to work, we really have to use data and have a strategic and intentional cycle around that, which is how we tie in number 2. And last but surely not least, we focus on providing supportive and equitable discipline for all, meaning our core values is really that tier 1, our expectations for everyone, and making sure that we have a responsive and restorative approach to discipline. Student life. So our day starts at 7:45. If you are coming from a daycare setting, you know how you have that cushion of my kid can get to school at 7, but class really doesn't start till 9. That is no more. Your kindergartner, your first grader, they are expected to be here at 7:45. We begin marking students tardy at 8 a.m. If you are a perfect attendance person, if your child is marked late, they do not get perfect attendance. So I always try to put that out there for our families. That's important for some families. We do offer free transportation to students who are within a certain attendance boundary. So as a school, we have open boundaries. As long as you are a Chicago resident, you can apply and attend Bronzeville. But in order to get the free busing, you have to live at least 1.5 miles away from the school, but within 6 miles. To the north, that is 22nd Street. To the south, that's 71st Street. East to the lake, west to the city limits. So east and west, really no boundaries, but north and south, you have to live between 22nd, Sarnet, and 71st Street. Bus students are allowed to come into the building as soon as they arrive off of their bus. I do have a skeleton staff here before 7:45, typically just enough to supervise our bus students. So unfortunately, we do not let students in the building before 7:45. We are fully departmentalized kindergarten through 5th grade. What that means is if your child has a teacher who teaches math and science and a teacher who teaches ELA and social science, starting from kindergarten through 3rd grade, that roughly pans out to be half of the day with each teacher. For 4th and 5th grade, they're really on a middle school schedule, so they have 60-minute classes with 4 different teachers. We do offer aftercare until 6 p.m. Those are our providers. The last one is our after-school time grant programming, which is Equal Extras. That is typically only for 1 hour after school, and it is through an application process. We have a limited number of seats, so that is typically not the option that families go for. We have one more provider that's not up here. This year we have something to build upon. Live in the Language, which is a full immersion Spanish program because we offer Spanish. And then the second or the third one is 530 Scholars, and that is academic enrichment. So this just gives you an idea of what a kindergarten schedule looks like. So you can see that they have 2 blocks. If they're in Miss Keeper's homeroom, they start with literacy first. If they're with Miss Lewis, they start with the STEM subjects. They have lunch and recess, and then they switch. They have an essentials class, which is either art, music, Spanish, or PE. And then we end the day with the intervention block. The same for 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade, 4th and 5th grade, so that you can see what the 60-minute rotations look like. More of a middle school model. We do have our essential schedule. Our students see their teachers at least once a week. On Friday, we rotate so that they can have another art, music, Spanish, or PE. As we grow, we may hire another PE teacher. We know how important movement is, and there are some requirements for PE. So as we expand to a full school, we may get an additional PE teacher so that we can get in some extra movement minutes. We are in a brand new school for the most part. Pretty much just the outside walls remain. They did a gut rehab of this building, and it's really beautiful. You'll see it shortly. The renditions are amazing. You have seen our hallways. They literally look just like this. And I can't wait to show you the video, but just so that you can see some of the.
Just take it with you.
Just so you can see some of the spaces. Top left hand for you corner is our parent room that was furnished by one of our families. Continuing to the right is our science lab. We are one of the few elementary schools that actually have a science lab built into the building. The teacher table is full demonstration with the gas line and everything. There are no Bunsen burners because it's not cold for elementary school, but really cool that we have 2 science labs. One science lab will be our middle school science lab. The other lab is open for teachers to sign up to bring their students to do experiments. This is our playground when it was in process, but we have a beautiful new playground installed 4 years ago. This is our learning center. We do not have a computer lab because every classroom has 30 devices dedicated just for their room, so we don't need a computer lab. But we do have a library that has soft seating for an area for reading, and then a classroom side. You can see our gym on the far left that you're in with us right now. The warm, bright colors really go throughout the school. That's our cafeteria with the tables folded. We have a beautiful art studio and a full-time art teacher, which is amazing. Not a lot of schools have full-time art and music. We're very, very fortunate to have a very strong essentials team. And then lastly, you'll see the music studio where our golden apple teacher lives. And this is our school. I did want to share some of the classrooms so that you can see how the theme of just being warm, bright, and inviting really is a theme throughout our school. So you'll see just some pictures of classrooms, how things are set up. This is some of our flexible seating, bins that children have the choice of books that they read. These are 2 pictures of our kindergarten classrooms. We have a partnership with Leading Through Literacy, and Pastor Neil comes and reads to our students every single week. So really just making sure that literacy is integrated throughout our days. Now to our parent involvement. Just talking about our friends our room parents. Renanda is still out in the lobby, so I'll just talk a little bit. Every classroom does have a liaison that helps us to bridge the communication between families and classrooms. As a principal, I'm inundated with emails, probably at least 100 a day, so that parents can get a reasonable response time and just be in the know. Our room parents really take the lead on that. They are the liaison between the Friends of Bronzeville as well as the school. They usually plan all the activities, so spirit weeks, they make sure families know. They take the lead of their fundraising, pictures, holiday parties, Thanksgiving celebrations, you name it, all the social things that we do as a school. Our room parents really support us with that. And Mrs. Townsend is our room parent coordinator. Our next group is the parent advisory, and Mrs. Barclay can talk a little bit more about that when we get into the panel. But until we had a formal LSC, we formed our parent advisory so that I can provide updates around our CIWP, budget, hiring, and all things BCS to our parents, and also to receive feedback from families as well. And last but surely not least, our Friends of Bronzeville Classical School, they usually do a welcome social at the beginning of the year and an end of the year social at the end of the year, just to thank parents for being actively involved and donating their time, money, and talents. They also take the lead on fundraising. CPS, as you can imagine, has an incredibly complex budgeting process, and if you are not a vendor, we cannot spend money with you. And so sometimes we just need something real quick from Amazon. But Amazon is not a strategic vendor, so the Friends of Bronzeville is amazing, and they usually step in and support us with those purchases. One really great example is that our first graders.
Our music boxes.
Oh, and Mr. Spears wants to tell you about the music box. I'll tell you about that. Our first graders are doing a kindness challenge from December 1st to December 17th. And our Friends of Bronzeville Classical School purchased those items through Amazon, so our first grade class could do that. We went out on remote learning, as you can imagine. Our essentials teachers, the music, art, PE, Spanish teacher, how are we going to teach our content areas at home? Mr. Spears is very innovative, creative, and forward-thinking. He was like, Mrs. Spicer, I think I got it for kindergarten and first grade. Second grade had recorders, third grade had guitars, but he really wanted to actively engage our kindergarten and first graders, so he created music boxes for them. And our Friends of Bronzeville Classical, they purchased all those items, so each one of our students had instruments that they could play at home while they were in remote learning to actively participate in music. Parents appreciated it and hated it all at the same time, as you can imagine. But that's how supportive they have been in the past and currently. This is our website that has not been updated since it launched, so please forgive us. I finally found someone on staff who is going to be trained, so our website will be updated soon. I'm happy to get that off of my plate. So coming soon, lots of updates. Some information is still relevant and current there, but just full transparency, it hasn't been a priority in the past 2 years, but we are getting to it. That is a commitment I'm making to the school community. We will probably just do a walking tour. We probably won't go into classrooms. As you can imagine, each evening we try to write down our traffic areas so that we're prepared for the next day, because we know COVID is still here and very, very present. So I know you want to see the building. We'll take just a walk so you can see where things are situated. But just to give you an insider's look, we are going to share our Bronzeville Classical virtual tour. And this is another representation of how the Friends of Bronzeville Classical support us in the age of COVID, and parents can't see schools and be in buildings. Recruitment is a major part of how we're going to continue to grow into a successful program. So they felt like this was a worthy investment. So they hired a professional crew to come out and create our virtual tour. So without further ado, Mr. Spears, if you'll share the video. Welcome to Bronzeville Classical School, where we are committed to cultivating scholars who will soar to new heights and achieve excellence. This is the main office. It is the heart of our school, where you can get most, if not all, of your questions answered. We proudly display the pennants of our families and parents. It's never too early to expose our students to post-secondary options. Our gymatorium is not only a gymnasium, but it is also our auditorium, where we host our athletic events, physical education classes, our concerts, and assemblies. The theme of warmth and welcome extends into our cafeteria, which is brightly decorated with our earmarked marketing materials. We wanted to make sure that our students had a beautiful and warm environment. Our hallways are adorned with artwork on loan to us by our BCS families. Here, we encourage our parents to have an active role in their child's education. Our parent room is comfortably decorated, so any of our families here to volunteer, attend the field trip, or other school visits, a comfortable place to wait and also to like need to. One of the features that makes BCS a special place is that we have an art studio, a room that was designed specifically for art. Our students are able to come in to artist tables and stools to engage in the visual arts. Our next special feature is our kiln room. Our art teacher has special access to a kiln so she can help our students create pottery. We are so excited to this new addition to Bronzeville Classical School that will take our visual arts program to the next level. These are our KinderStar classrooms. Yes, you heard me right. We refer to our kindergartners as KinderStars. From the first moment that they walk through our doors, they are forever known as the KinderStars. Inside of our classrooms, they are well equipped with a personal restroom for our kindergartners. We also have smart TV interactive panels that every teacher at BCS has. We also have an iPad cart and Chromebook cart dedicated just for our kindergartners.
Hi, welcome to Brownsville Classical School. I am Ms. Keepers, one of the kindergarten teachers. Something that is unique about Brownsville Classical School is that we utilize a departmentalized model. So I am a humanities teacher, which means I teach reading and social science, while my partner teaches STEM. Our classrooms are all equipped with a level library, and that is super important, especially at the foundational level. Students are able to read where they are, and then we work with them to build up those literacy skills. Having collect those tangible systems. Again, I'm so glad you guys are here. Happy you guys are joining us.
The second floor houses our music studio, language lab, learning center, just state-of-the-art science lab, our teacher workroom, and our grades 5 through 8 classroom. This is our music room. Scholars begin to learn more about music fundamentals and performances here. From kindergarten on up, our students begin to impact what they learn about music theory through the use of instruments.
Welcome to music, where our BCS scholars are learning and developing their musical skills, music theory, and performance. Starting in kindergarten and first grade, our students are hands-on with our xylophones and small percussion students.
Our STEM teachers will be working with our scholars in one of 2 science labs. They are able to come here to do hands-on experiments and activities. This also is a unique space to Bronzeville Classical School. Not every elementary school has a full state-of-the-art science lab.
Here in our science lab, there is a full demonstration teacher station that is equipped with a gas line and running water. In traditional schools, you may be familiar with the library, but here at Bronzeville Classical, we have a learning center. Our learning center is a combination of a library, a media center, as well as a classroom space. Our teachers are able to reserve this space to bring their classes up to conduct in-house research. You may be wondering about a computer lab. You haven't seen one, and that's another thing that makes Bronzeville stand out. Each one of our classrooms are equipped with the media card for at least 30 students. So every single classroom has their own set of Chromebooks or iPads. There's no sharing and no need to reserve the computer lab. Our playground was fully renovated in 2018. Our flooring has the latest technology to prevent concussions from those inevitable falls that will happen during recess.
Thank you for taking a tour of Bronzeville Classical School. You enjoyed it, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you, Mrs. Spears. And I also failed to share that Ms. Keepers, one of our kindergarten teachers, she was a finalist for the Golden Apple Award as well. And so she is a teacher of distinction with the Golden Apple Foundation. So super excited about the award-winning staff that we have here. I have one more parent that I did not introduce, Mr. El-Amin. He is one of our first grade parents. He also is a parent at Skinner North. I know I'm kind of throwing him out there. So you may be able to ask him questions about Skinner North on the side, not during our presentation. But definitely want to thank him for coming and being with us tonight. Again, we know that there are limited seats as classical school principals. We honestly, really, truly all work together to make sure that all of our schools are successful. We are here to serve children no matter what school they go to. So all jokes, but seriously, if you have questions, weren't able to make it, I'm sure Mr. El-Amin will answer those questions for you. He's an amazing resource to our school community. But I am going to turn it over to the parent panel to just kind of maybe introduce yourself, say, say something about your experience at Bronzeville Classical School. Maybe keep your remarks to maybe a minute or so, so that we can get through your introductions, and then we can just open it up to any questions that you all have. We'll cap the evening off with just like a walk through the building so you can just see where everything is. Again, apologize, we won't go into classrooms, but really just want you to at least see where things are located in the building. Mrs. Barclay?
Good evening, my name is Akira Barclay. I am the mother of a very energetic third grader, Molly, and I am also chair of the Parent Advisory Committee. Molly started here at Bronzeville Classical the first year in kindergarten, so feel free to ask any questions. It has been an incredible experience for her, and this is one of her favorite places to be.
Good evening, everyone. Monica Carney. I have a son who's a kinder star. We just started here end of August, and so we've been here about 3 months. It's been a great transition. I think the school definitely understands that age group and preparing them for a lifelong career of learning. And so I've been so far very impressed with how he's adapted, how the resources the school has. And I will say to Mrs. Spicer's point earlier, that school really is community, and the community here at BCS has been very, very strong and very welcoming to the latest class as well.
Hello everyone, my name is Honey Brooks, and same as Akira, my daughter is a friend of hers, and we're in third grade as well. So I have the opposite. She's a little reserved and sometimes shy or quiet. But we've been here since first grade, and it's been an amazing experience. She really enjoys school. It's crazy. You can't give them a lead. Yeah, but definitely, I love the environment, and we do support each other as parents.
And I do just want to shout out Langston's teachers. When Langston came to us, she was very, very quiet. She did not want to share in class at all, didn't really talk. I have heard Langston talking more this year than I have ever seen her talk. First grade, she was very, very quiet, but that is a credit to her teachers because she's just really opened up and blossomed.
Awesome. My name is Stephen Mitchell. I have a first grader Ethan and a third grader Stephen. Quite frankly, Bronzeville Classical is the best. And I'm not saying it as a bias, but from a really sort of objective point, you'll see to have a Golden Apple finalist and a Golden Apple teacher at a school that's 3 years old, that's incredible. You just don't find it. To have a school that can raise tens of thousands of dollars to help the teachers and give them what they need, you just don't have that at a new school. To have children that love to come to school every day and smile and argue, but still love each other, it's incredible. You won't find another environment like that. But everybody has bought into us being one of the best schools in the country, and we believe it, and we're on the way to accomplishing it.
And his boys are not shy at all.
Not at all.
And this is me and Mr. Mitchell, always. So we try to introduce our prospective parents to this relationship we have. He got rid of the microphone very, very quickly, but he knows he has to tell the story of how he got to Bronzeville, because it was not a straight line.
Right, so I lived in the Bronzeville community for 22 years. Bronzeville Classical came on about a week or two before you had to select your schools for the selective enrollment process. We've been fighting for a school for years and years, and we finally got it. But when we got it, we didn't know who the principal would be. We didn't know what type of environment it would be or anything. So while we were happy, we just didn't know what to do. So we put Skinner as our #1 school for our son to go to. So our son got into Skinner. He went to Skinner. And I mean, Skinner's a good school, and people, I'm not bad mouthing it. It's Skinner West. But I wasn't impressed at all. And by that time, we had selected Spice. We had took her from Skinner North. I saw them building the staff. We had really started to put the pieces together, and I saw that Bronzeville Classical was going to be like this awesome school. Plus, I lived in the community. I could see, fighting traffic and going through that all year, knowing that I had this school in the community. So some of you guys answered the question about if you have to select a school and how that works if you did not. So our son had actually started at Skinner West, and we had to pull him out of Skinner West, put him back on the list, and go down, because we had put Bronzeville Classical, I think it's number 5 or 6. So we had to deny each school and put them back on the list, deny, to get to Bronzeville, because we were so convinced and we knew that Bronzeville Classical was going to be the school that we wanted our kid to be at. So to answer you guys' question, whoever, if you, that first group, let's say you put Bronzeville Classical or whatever down on the list, if you decide you want them to go there, you're gonna have to get put back in that pool and get denied every school in front of that school before you can get to your school. Now, the way we did it, we literally did an actuary equation, and we saw how many spots were available based on our kids' test score, based on a lot of the other factors. We felt very confident that we would get our kid into the school. It worked out. So I was so convinced that Bronzeville Classical was where I wanted my kid to be, that I was willing to, he was out of school for about 6 days at home just because I wanted him to come here. But again, I'm an economist by trade, I'm a lawyer, but I'm an economist. But I literally did an equation. I said, based on his score, he has to get in unless something crazy happens where they shut down 1 or 2 classrooms, which they did. So it worked out. Miss Spicer knows I'm her biggest fan, but she knows that if something is going crazy, I'm gonna say, Miss Spicer, it's looking crazy.
He does. He does.
I want to say something to that. Mr. Mitchell says he'll let Ms. Spicer. I am also the parent of, I was going to say teenagers, a brand new young adult. Don't ask me how old I am. And a high school junior. And so I've seen a few schools with 3 very bright children. And one of the things that stands out to me that I always share with
people about Brownsville Classical is how accessible Principal Spicer is. If you're a kindergartner, it's your first child, you may not know, but there are schools where parents are not at all welcome in the school building. Sometimes you may not even see your principal, let alone have time. Mrs. Spicer, the parent advisory committee was her idea. She knew without an LSC that we needed something in order to build a strong school community. So our parent advisory was the opportunity for us to come together as a parent community and have an open line of communication with her. And I think that that is one of the biggest strengths about Brownsville.
Thank you, Mrs. Barclay. We'll open it up to you guys. What questions do you have? Yes. It's in the primary, it's about 28-1. The older you get, the more full our classes are. So we take up to 30 in each classroom. Fourth grade is not full, but fifth grade is the fullest grade level. There's 29 in one class and 30 in the other. The most students we've had in the classroom is 31. Yes.
So when it comes to your attrition rate, kind of understand that you see your community, what's your attrition rate over the last 2 years?
With students or teachers?
Students, and both actually.
With students, I would say our first year, we may have had 4 students transfer, but we are not exempt to the flight from Chicago. So I would say like last year was our biggest number of students transferring, and I would say we had somewhere around 12 or 15. So we've had as few as 4 up to 15. Most of those families transferred to a district out of state, suburbs, and then because our kindergarten team does an amazing job, we lose students to Keller because Keller starts at first grade. So we've lost students to Keller, Leonard, out of district, or out of state, but never to another classical school or a neighborhood school. Teachers, since we've started, we opened 2 new classrooms every year. We started out with 4 homeroom classes, and now we're up to 12 homeroom classes. Our central team has stayed intact. Those teachers opened the school with us with the addition of, of course, the art teacher who came last year. We have 1 teacher who moved to Boston, and then we just have 1 teacher who did not work out. So we've only had 2 new teachers outside of our expanding grade levels. So we're pretty stable. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, so you can, you still have an opportunity to transfer in at another grade outside of kindergarten. But the trick to that is they have to test every year. They don't look at your test scores from a previous year. Every year you have to reapply if you don't get off the seat. But as long as there's a seat open at that grade level, it's fair game. No, so that is an excellent question. After the 20th day, we close admissions for selective enrollment schools. There will be no subsequent rounds, and then we don't do mid-year transfers. Yes, ma'am.
This may have been a rumor, so I'm not sure if this is true, but is there any chance that this will be turned into a dual language school?
No, I think that that is a rumor because we partnered with Live in the Language. And so Live in the Language is a full immersion daycare. So starting from infants on up until they get school age, they only speak in the target language, and I know that they offer more than just Spanish. Through that partnership, our students get an extra dose of Spanish. So they're a lot more fluent. And our goal is that if your goal for your child is to earn the seal of biliteracy from the state in high school, that they can start on that trajectory here. And the partnership with Live in the Language helps with that goal. Our Spanish in class or in school program is not as rigorous as you can imagine because we have novice through the proficiency levels to acquire a language. So we offer that as an additional resource for families who are interested. But our Spanish teacher works very, very closely with them and those families who have that as a goal for their child. So So we probably will not become a dual language school, but we just have that partnership with Live the Language. Yes, ma'am.
As far as the language goes, how do you guys get the students through? So is it every year they are progressing, or do they start over every year doing the same?
So as you can imagine, language acquisition is very, very individualized. And so our teacher uses a personalized learning approach just like the rest of our classes. And so she has a curriculum that supports students at all proficiency levels. So she differentiates within her class. Yes, ma'am.
What kind of support the student receive if they're like struggling with water and language?
Yes, so we do offer support through the multi-tier systems of support, which is why small group instruction is so important. And this year, because of unfinished learning, we do have intervention blocks. So we do offer student support. We do have diverse learner teachers, so if your child has an IEP or 504, they will get support that they need if they come to the school. Yes, ma'am.
Are there extracurricular activities or clubs?
Yes, I'm so glad you asked. That was something that I made a mental note to add. This year, we finally are eligible to participate in the CPS sports program. Fall was a little bit difficult with COVID and everything. We didn't get fall sports off the ground, but we are playing winter sports beginning in 5th grade. We have a co-ed 3rd and 4th grade team that's playing in an outside league. We have a 5th grade girls basketball team, a 5th grade boys basketball team, and a co-ed cheerleading team. And we're really, really excited. Both of our basketball teams won on their first game Saturday. So first teams ever, first wins ever. So they're really excited to make history for the school. Outside of the sports program offered through CPS, we do Eagle Extras, and that is where we apply for a grant to offer 1 hour free programming after school from 3 to 4. We ask our teachers to lead those clubs because we believe in, cultivating and fostering that relationship between teacher and student. We want them to see our teachers as people. They're not just their reading teachers or math teachers. So we offer things like healthy cooking, gardening, crocheting, music clubs. We have choir, we have guitar, a quarter ensemble. Right now the kids are in the pool games. They have paper crafts, bookies and crafts. So whatever the interests of the teachers are, we offer those through our application process. And then we have a partnership with Bronzeville Fencing Academy. So we offer fencing after school. There's, what am I forgetting, Mrs. Spears? We have Live the Language. We have the academic enrichment, the 530 scholars.
Tennis, even though we didn't do it this fall, hopefully we'll partner back up with Excess Tennis, which is right up the street, which is a really awesome tennis program.
Yes, we've been trying to get that restarted. Before COVID, they had a grant so that they offer transportation for our students to go from here to Access Tennis for a tennis program. They still offer after-school program, but we haven't been able to provide transportation. So as you can imagine, it's difficult if you have to come in 2:45 to pick your child up to get them down. But hopefully, once COVID is finally under control, we can restart that program, or maybe they'll get another grant and they'll be able to offer transportation. Yes, sir.
For the parents, can you talk about your approach to prepare your students for the selective enrollment exam? Test work?
So my kids went to a daycare called Taylor Beginnings in Kenwood, and they do an excellent job of preparing the kids for the test. That's literally what they do from the time they're 3 years old up until they take the test. And so even beyond that, we just reinforce what they taught. I mean, they're, up here you have parents, some parents that that's a very rigorous rote approach. Like they do a lot of work all the time, but that's not necessarily what you have to do. Some parents homeschool their kids and they did just fine, but Taylor Beginnings is what we did for both of our kids, and it worked out.
For my daughter, we actually enrolled in a test prep program, so specific for that. So it's called the Critical Thinking Child. And actually the owner of the Critical Thinking child is also a co-owner of the Sergeant's College this year. So, very, same thing, a lot of rigor, a lot of independent work that we brought in the following meetings. It was definitely very rigorous, and they were testing her every day, or every meeting, to see where she was progressing, what areas they would focus on, prepare her, and it worked out.
We were a TV family as well. We were at Taylor Beginnings. A couple thoughts is one thing that was suggested to me that I've suggested to people is to have your kids practice listening to different accents because you don't know where your proctor for the test is going to be from. So if your child is not used to listening to folks from different countries or anything like that, that would be helpful. So tap into your network and have them practice asking them what's, word problems is a good way to prep. And then I would say you have to start setting the stage early for the test to not be stressful for your kid. And so really it's how to be uplifting about it. It's a chance for you to show them all the stuff you know. Hey buddy, somebody wants to ask you some questions about kindergarten, just to see what you know to prepare you for it. Because if you haven't heard, they do take them away from you into a room and you will have no clue what happened back in that room. And if you have a child like mine, it's like comes out and says, I don't remember what happened, mommy. Right, they blank them out somehow. They don't remember anything. They're hungry now, so you just won't get any information. So you kind of gotta just make sure you prep them to kind of go knock it out, but in a very calm kind of way.
And my daughter was one of those that did not go to preschool at all. Wasn't necessarily homeschooled either. So I think in terms of preparing her, it was more about her ability to actually walk away with the person who was administering the test and speak openly and freely. So I agree with the other parents. They do blink them like Men in Black. When she came back, I asked her, she said, we read a story and then he asked me about some words. It was super, super vague. So I have no clue. She came here in the same classroom with students that were far more prepared for kindergarten than she was. And she does extremely well. So I don't want any parent to feel like they haven't prepared their child, because when they get here, there's some magic dust and intense educator expertise in kindergarten. And maybe it is the individualized instruction and from an educator's point of view, but the students here, if your student needs a little more support, they will get that. And if your student is ahead, they don't have to sit around and wait for everyone else to catch up. And so that was sort of the key thing I looked for in a school, having the experience with my older children. My children had to, at some points in some grades, had to kind of sit and wait for everyone to catch up. So I feel great about a school where none of the students kind of fall through the cracks, not getting what they need or being held back in some way.
Thank you all for saying that. I'll say that as well. They don't really publicize what type of assessment they give, what's on the assessment. I do think that the number one thing is that if your child is not comfortable with strangers, they'll have a tough time with the testing setting. They typically use IIT and the proctors from their psychology department, and so all of them are not American. So I think the tip that Mrs. Carney gave is great. So make sure they feel comfortable with a stranger. Make sure they're comfortable with people who English may not be their first language. I also would say if your child is not reading, that is okay. They do not have to read for this assessment. It is completely verbal at kindergarten and given one-on-one, but your child does have to feel comfortable talking. It's a verbal test, so if they're not going to open up and talk, it's going to be difficult for the assessor to determine their actual ability. For classical schools, they are looking for academic potential. It is not an achievement test, so they're not trying to see how many questions they get right or wrong. They really are assessing how your child thinks. My son is here in 5th grade, And then the one here in 5th grade never told me anything about the test. But my older son, who is now 7th grade at Kenwood, told me a few years ago one question he remembered, and it was more of a critical thinking question rather than a calculation question. He told me it was a math question, and they asked him, if you're gonna make punch for a party, would you make 64 ounces, 64 cups, 64 gallons, or 64 pints? So not really asking them to calculate anything, but having them critically think about how big is a party, what is the capacity of each measurement, and then how do I answer that question? So analogies work really, really well with that. If your child has never been to a real bakery or the bakery counter in the grocery store, if they don't run any errands with you, I encourage you just to get them out. They've never been to a museum, a bank, grocery store, a cleaners, all those community things that we just kind of take for granted. All of that adds to their lived experience and helps them to think more critically.
You know, Ms. President, it's funny you say that, because I'm the parent of a child that is soft-spoken and was shy. We tested for kindergarten, she had no problem separating because, of course, the building is there for you to teach the kids about talking and training. But we went in, I prepped them, separate, you know, because honestly, if your child doesn't separate, they'll stop it. The child goes, have meltdowns, like crying, they'll stop it. And she's true, go into the community. I was doing things because we take for granted. When is the last time you ever been to a laundromat? Last time you been to one. The child probably never seen one, you know, from my family. I took her to a laundromat. I like to be more, just more in tune with just going, even just to the grocery store, produce, these just recognizing where they fit in what category. So really taking walks, went to the bank. We went to the bank. You know, she just said we just went everything online. I said, okay, yeah, this is go into the bank. I went and met with a teller, and the teller talked to her about the process of banking and what do you do and how that works. Those things that we don't think about because we do live in a digital world, we take for granted. It's like, oh my God, but to break it down to a micro level, that's what they need to understand. And I will say, my daughter, she separated her from because she's so soft-spoken and shy. She didn't get to see that she wanted in kindergarten. However, for 1st grade, it was a written test. She blew it away. It didn't require her to, because her scores were through the roof. I was blown away, but that's just her personality at that age. Now she's very vocal. So that's too vocal and opinionated.
At Taylor Beginnings, all those things that you all written, those were like homework assignments. Go to the bakery, go to the grocery store, and know that produce is around the side. Know the difference between who paints a wall and who paints a picture, like an artist versus a painter. And those are things that we take for granted, and those are literally were all our assignments for at Taylor Beginnings. And another thing I would say, they start, at least with both of my kids, they start the introduction with what's your name and what's your address. And the kids that don't know that, you can just see that like that's how they start their test. So at a minimum, you want them to be able to spew off that name and that address because that is literally the start of the test. So if they kind of tense up and don't know that, it could be problematic.
Oh, that's a good point, isn't it? Yeah. One thing,
We have a question.
Oh, there's a question in the chat. Oh, okay. What's the question?
What's the difference between a classical and a regional gifted school?
Great. So in CPS, it's pretty basic. At the regional gifted centers, they start acceleration at 2 grade levels ahead. It doesn't start that way in kindergarten. I think they make that shift somewhere around 3rd grade, but I'm not really sure. I've never worked at a regional gifted center, but at its most basic tenet, regional gifted centers start 2 years ahead. Classical schools start 1 year ahead. Any other questions? Okay. One thing I wanted to say before we go on break, and I think we have maybe like 3 more questions and then we'll do the tour. I'm going to stay here if you guys have more questions. Mr. Spears is going to take a group and Mrs. Cannon is going to take a group as well so that you all can see the building. Ironically, no one asked about homework. And so,
That's great, thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome. So homework for us has evolved. When we first started, we were given weekly homework packets that families really had the autonomy throughout the week to complete the assignments as, as you were able to. We know that our students, I say, are overprogrammed, so they go to a million activities all week and maybe don't get to it to the weekend. So we really wanted to be responsive to our families and give them some cushion. During remote learning, we did not give homework because everything was homework. They were doing school from home. And, it just adds a different level of stress. You have those extra assignments that you have to complete with your child. And quite honestly, kindergarten and first grade, it is some hand-over-hand support. And so we wanted to be super responsive to our families during remote learning as well as hybrid learning. This year, we wanted to ease back into homework, and so we offer a homework choice board. So there are some must-do activities and some may-do activities. Like Mr. Mitchell may have his boys do the entire board. Mrs. Barclay may say, Molly, you can choose the must-dos and do all the may-dos and just do one must-do. So we really wanted to be responsive to those families who feel like I need to engage academically all the time, doing all the extra, and then balance it out with those families and just like, I want you to do the must-dos and maybe we'll do a little bit extra just to keep things balanced. We really believe in a holistic, balanced approach here. Students get developmentally appropriate homework. Assignments should not take, at the primary level, more than 30 minutes a night to do homework if you do it every single night, beyond your daily reading. Now, we do expect that you are reading 15, 20, 30 minutes with your child every single night, because reading is one of those things that if you don't do it, you're not going to get better. And so we do expect daily reading, but other activities should take between 15 to 30 minutes. We usually only do one big project each quarter. All the core subject areas have one big project. When they get into second grade, they may have musical practice that they're doing every single night. We start the recorder in second grade, guitar in third and fourth grade, and we're excited in the fall, we're gonna start our full band program. So that's pretty much the homework. It doesn't count that much that if, like, let's just say you are philosophically against homework, that's not gonna tank your child. We believe in making it relevant, but not, penalizing a child for, not doing homework. That's not gonna be a barrier to academic success. So we really try to make it developmentally appropriate, relevant, and at the right level of rigor that they should be able to do it on their own. Kindergarten will tell you that somehow the magic happens after winter break. It's probably terrible for the first quarter of the school year, but they eventually get it. Ms. Keepers has some type of magic wand that she waves. I don't ever want to be left alone with the kindergartners. They don't want to leave the kindergartners alone with me. When they come back, it's usually chaotic. So it's really something magical that happens in kindergarten. Ms. Carney can probably, actually, 3 out of the 4 parents up there can tell you, and Mr. Elamine can tell you as well. We did have Mr. Mitchell and Mr. Elamine had students who started with us virtually. And so that was definitely something to see, kindergartners being virtual, but they did it and they did extremely well with their teachers. So if you want to know how does that work with a 5-year-old, you may want to see them during the time when you get ready to do the tour. But I'll take maybe 3 more pressing questions and then we'll head out on our tours. Yes, ma'am.
What is the demographics and sense of gender and ethnic makeup for the students as well as the staff?
Gender for the students is pretty about 50-50. I think that is intentional, but I don't know. They said that test score is like 50-50. Just about between boys and girls. The students, we are probably around 65% Black. I would say about 20% Latinx, probably 5% Asian, and then 5% biracial. So we are still mostly Black school. Our staff, I would say, I don't know how people identify, and I only know that because it's on our school profile page. I would say our staff is diverse. Mrs. Spears, how would you describe it?
Yeah, I would absolutely say that we have one of the most diverse staffs that I've ever worked with. I've worked across the city on the north side, Northwest, and then at another school here in the Bronzeville neighborhood before I came to Bronzeville Classical. And we have a very diverse staff, both in gender and in ethnic makeup. And I think a lot of our students are represented in the staff that we have here. And I think that's intentional, in no small part to Ms. Spicer, that we are able to represent our student population in the staff as well.
So we have, and quite honestly, he's saying diverse in gender. We are not exempt to males being on our staff. In education, there's just not a lot of males in this field. But I will say that we have several assistants and teachers who are male. We try to make sure that our staff is reflective of the student body. But at the end of the day, we hire the best candidate for the position. Yes.
The fundraising goals.
Oh, yeah, thank you for bringing that back up. Can you talk about fundraising a little bit from the Friends of Bronzeville perspective?
So the Friends of Bronzeville, we're the primary fundraising group for the school. We've done fundraisers from, just last week, for example, we sold spirit gear, these type of things here. We've gotten several grants from community organizations. Our plan is to have, since we opened, we were gonna have a seminal event, which was gonna be an art auction. But because of COVID, we haven't been able to do that. But whatever it takes, we get it for the school. If Mr. Spears were to call today and say, I need 100 guitars, we'll figure out a way. And our parents are just that supportive. Whatever our kids need, whether it be Friends of Bronzeville, individual donations from parents, we want to make sure that our kids get everything. So if they say we need 10 laptops because this happened, you better believe they're going to have 10 laptops. And so if you're a parent here, be prepared to help get those 10 laptops. And we're open to suggestions on fundraisers or whatever it takes, but whether it be Friends of Bronzeville or parents, we're going to make sure our kids have every advantage that any kid in this city has.
And so that just translates to, we don't really have an arbitrary goal, and we don't just collect money to collect money. If we are doing a fundraiser, it is for a particular initiative. But we do have a giving program that we ask parents to opt into, and it is to give $25 a month. And some families have opted into that, and some families have not. There's no pressure around it, but typically, if we are talking fundraising, we have a specific initiative that we're raising money for. Right now, I'm hoping that all the money in the coffers are going to help us fund our band program next year, because band instruments are not cheap at all. Mr. Spears is amazing, so he's already got the quote, and it's probably about $12,000 to outfit our band program. And so part of that can be funded through the school, but I would definitely be reaching out to the Friends of Bronzeville to help us cover whatever we can't cover with our discretionary funds. Another focus is I have been focusing on using the Friends of Bronzeville to support our arts program, because I just believe that we have to have enriching programs outside of academics for our students. We fired up our kiln finally this year because Ms. Forrest is here full time. Last year she was here part time, so we never started it. When we started this year, we found out that half of it warms, half of it doesn't. So we need $7,000 for a new kiln. We wrote a grant for it. We didn't get it this year. We're going to try again this spring. But if we can't get a grant for it, then that would be something that we'll reach out to the Friends of Bronzeville for. So we really try to be intentional with our ask and only raise funds for what we need.
Say that again?
We do have a teaching assistant in kindergarten that is shared and is funded through our school budget. With the Friends of Bronzeville or any fundraising efforts, we really don't want to tie that to a person's position because, 1 year it may be great, the next year it may not. And I also want to have very, very clear boundaries with parents. Staffing is my role, support is your role. And I think that when parents start funding positions, it gets a little gray. Yes, ma'am. Not necessarily. So we do prioritize some extra support for our kindergarten and first grade. So right now throughout the day, our kindergarten and first grade classes do have an assistant in there, for most of the day. If there's a diverse learner in the classroom, there may be an additional teacher or an additional aide. I would say out of all of our classes, teachers get on average at least 1 hour of support from an additional staff member per day. But there's not necessarily one assistant assigned to each classroom every day. It's not like the pre-K world where there's a teacher and an assistant in the class. All right, it seems like those are all the big group questions. I'm gonna turn it over to Mr. Spears for logistics. I'll stay here if you have any more questions or if you want me to clarify anything that we shared this evening, I'll be here. And Mr. Spears will just share logistics.
Sorry, we were talking about management. So we're gonna just do a quick walking tour. I'm gonna have this side. You're gonna walk with Miss Cannon. You guys will stay on the first floor first, and then she'll take you up to the second floor, so you can see kind of what goes on the second floor. And I'm gonna take this group. You can follow me as soon as they're gone. And we'll start upstairs, and then we'll come back downstairs past our kindergarten rooms, and we'll show you kind of the whole building there.
So after your tours, our event is over. Again, I'll be here for probably at least until the tours are done if you want to come back and ask me questions. But thank you all so much for coming out. Have a wonderful evening.